So guys, as you can see right here, this is our new 4060 that we just got. We're going to hook it up to the rig. We're going to test out some hash rates. It's just a quick unboxing. So as you can see, just pretty standard. Only comes with the box, no power cables. Got this for around $260 from the Amazon warehouse. And there's a lot of big deals on there that you can get if you just want return GPUs. So it's only a 2-fan 4060. If you open it, obviously standard, the electrical protective there. If we pull it out here, we can see it's pretty standard, just dual fan back plate on it as well. So anything missing. And we just got to take this off because I think this is for the actual riser. So once we've taken that off, you can see there, that's for the riser. We're going to get this plugged into a riser if we get one just right now. And we've got an old riser here. This is just from a build from a couple of years ago. I think this is so it's got this power supply, so the Molex and the SATA, plus the 6-pin. I don't know if we're going to have to use both the 6-pin on the riser and for the actual GPU, but we'll get that figured out after we set it all up. So we're going to be taking the 1050 Ti off the test rig that we use to do all the videos. We're going to put this one in as well. We'll check out some hash rates on it, and then we'll stick it on a rig. So as we can see here, we have the 1050 Ti there, and then the 1080 Ti here. We're going to be taking this off, putting the 4060 in that place, or we might put it in this place depending on, the heat that it gives out. I don't think it's going to be giving out as much heat as the 1080 Ti. So we're going to take that off, replace it, and we'll be back when we take it off. So after we've taken the 1050 Ti off, I just want to show you that they're basically the same size if we take it here and we remove the box. You can see here that they're nearly the same size in terms of the length of them. However, the width of them isn't the same. This one's a bit smaller. So we'll get this hooked up and then we'll test the hash rates. So there we have it fixed up onto the rig. So I know you don't normally do this, but we've actually got it through the Molex for both of these. So we're powering 2 risers on 1 Molex. It's just chained together. I know you shouldn't really daisy chain them, but this is only 2 risers. It would be a problem if it was 3 or 4, but for this it doesn't really matter because most of the power draw is coming through the 8-pin. These are rated up to, I believe, 115 watts for the 4060, and the 8-pin can supply up to 150. So we should be okay on the power supply and powering the risers. If not, we'll go in and fix it. So after turning it on, fans powered up properly, so we've got the right power supply going on there. Hopefully it stays running. If not, then we'll have to sort it out, obviously. We still got the 1080 running there. We might take it off just because there's no need to have it on there if we're going to be testing out the 4060. But now we'll actually head over and test it out on the computer. We're going to be testing hash rates for basically all of the most profitable coins that we're mining right now, seeing what the hash rates are, seeing what the overclocks we can get on them as well. So now we're on the computer, we can actually get into testing. So I just showed you what it was like on the rig. We kind of reworked the rig that was for testing, so that's why we have those 2 risers that we just built. It's just a throw together thing where we just put it on those. And here we have our batch files that we're going to test. So we've only opted to do certain coins because a lot of them are kind of redundant right now. I don't think that they're going to be bringing back profitability. Maybe Flux might, but we're not including it in this video. Raven coin is going to be in there just because we're testing car power algorithm coins as well, so we can input figures for that. And the other one I'd probably say is Ergo. We just didn't include that because I don't think it would be beneficial going forward. So we're mainly focusing on these newer coins, the ones that bring a little more profitability and do slightly less damage on your cards. With the core intensive algorithms that we're seeing, it's a lot less damage on your card, in my opinion, because the temperatures are way lower. The things that do really damage your card is your core going up and down, as in you turn it on one algorithm, it switches to another, stuff like that. The resetting of the temperatures is one of the main things that is going to hurt GPUs. Anyway, let's get into what we're going to mine today. So we've got Lithium, we've got Ironfish, we've got Carlson, NEXA, Radiant, Ethereum, and then the last one I believe we have is over here on Regal Miner, which is Near AI. So we did have it on LOL Miner. This is what we're going to be using today. But I don't think it supports carb how algorithm coins. So that's why we're doing it on Regal Miner. I tried to keep them all on the same miner so it would be fair in terms of overclocking and stuff like that. But I believe that lol miner is probably the best out of all of them anyway. Unless, you find a miner that has lower fees. I think BZ miner has slightly lower fees. But the overclocking on BZ miner I found is slightly worse than lol miner right now. I don't know if they're updating or stuff like that, and they're working on it. But for me, at least on this certain GPU, I've tried it on BZ miner. The hash rates are better on lol miner right now for a lot of these coins. So we're just going to keep it fair and keep it on lol miner. So as you can see, we just set up normal batch files. We have the pool that we're mining to. Most of these are on hero miners. Some of them are on viper.net. That's the only two that I believe I used. And we have our overclocks here. We've disabled device 1 because that's what we're recording on. We have power limits, fans, memory clock, core offset. Some of them don't have core offsets if you look here. Let's go for Ethereum. So this is just a locked clock and a locked memory clock. So we're going to go through all of the hash rates. I'm just going to screenshot them just because I don't necessarily think that you guys are bothered in seeing it mining. I can show an ALPH one real quick, but it's going to be loud as well. So if we just start this up, you can see that the overclocks have been applied. You're probably going to hear the fans in the background right now because it's so loud. However, we have the core clock offset 300, locked core clock 2490, locked memory clock 810, power limit 90, fan percentage 80%. So these are all applied within lol miner, and the mega hash is 932, it's reporting there. So I'm just going to close that down just so we don't have the fans in the background whilst we're recording. We're going to go over to do this testing, and then I'll bring you back with the screenshots and all the figures. So here we have all the figures from what we're mining. Now I have had a problem with the mining programs. I don't know what is happening with the GPU at the moment. It's not exactly the GPU. If you saw previous videos, I did a whole tear down of my rig and it still didn't display the power in the mining software. So I'm just dragging the power straight from this GPU Z. I actually think that it's better to have this open because it actually monitors properly, because if you see here, this core clock is supposed to be 490 when it's actually operating at 475. So there's a lot of information on here as well that you don't get in the mining program, but it also helps that we can't display power here. So we've got the power draw on this software. Now I don't really know what the problem is with that. We've gone through and troubleshotted it. I don't think it's to do with the drivers because obviously there is a sensor for the power and it can obviously be picked up by certain softwares. It's just the mining software isn't going to pick it up. So this is our ALPH one. We have our mega hash here. We have our shares. I tried to let every one of them run until the pool mega hash kind of caught up with the actual mega hash that we're getting here, just so I could verify. And then obviously we have the overclocks and the temperatures here. The next one I believe is Ethereum. If we scroll in here, so we got 19.18 in mega hash. We have the pool mega hash. I don't know why it's displaying at 16.37. Normally it will display either slightly above or slightly below, but I checked on the pool and it did register actually at 19.18, so I don't know why it's displaying that there. We're not going to talk about the figures right now, we'll get into that later. I'm just showing you the screenshots just to verify the information that I'm inputting. So this is Ironfish, you can see a mega hash here, you can see our clocks and our other information here. Next one is Carlson. So this would be kind of similar to Piran, I believe, in terms of the mega hash because they're basically the same algorithm. And we have our mega hash, we have our overclocks here. The pool mega hash, as you can see, is not exactly catching up with the actual mega hash that we've got on the mining program. And then we've got Near AI, so obviously I said this is on Regal Miner. And Regal Miner actually displayed the pool hash rate to be higher, which is interesting. Normally it displays it at lower, but you can see the figures here. Regal Miner has this weird setup where it will display hash rate here in real time, and then it will also give you like minute updates. I don't know why it does that, but surely you could just get the information from here. And then it shows the core and memory. They have a weird way of displaying the memory on Regal Miner. I don't know why it's displaying at 9250 megahertz, because realistically it's only at 2312. If we go across, we have NEXA. This is our mega hash here, overclocks, and the pool. So pool mega hash is obviously registering higher. Then I think this is the last one. So this is Radiant and it's 626 mega hash. The clocks are here. We're pulling about 80 watts. And the pool mega hash was slightly lower. I don't know why it wasn't catching up. We let it run for 18. Maybe if I let it run longer and submitted more shares, it would have given us a good figure. However, those are all the figures. We're not going to go too much into it just because we have it all laid out here. So we have at the top our algorithms on the side. ALPH, which is Blake 3. Ironfish, which is Blake 3 Ironfish. They are two different algorithms. NeurAI, which is KPow. Carlson, which is Heavy Hash Carlson. NEXA is NEXA Pow. Radiant is SHA-512256D. And Hyper is ETH hash. So it was formerly Ethereum. You can see our hash rate. These are in mega hash or whatever the hash rate is on the miner. I tried to get them all into mega hash. So normally ALPH and Ironfish, they're displayed in gigahash like on mining calculators. So these are all in mega hash and we'll do some conversions on that later. These are just all the figures from what we got from those screenshots that you saw. And then we have the watts here, the efficiency and the temperatures. We also down here have overclocks, so we'll look a little bit into that later. Just based off watts, if we're going A to Z, let's see which pulls the least watts. Right now it's actually Hyper, which is interesting because I thought ALPH would actually pull the least watts. But Hyper seems to have weird hash rates. I'm displaying it at 19.18 as we saw earlier. However, I'm having a feeling that it could be pushed basically higher. I just don't know how to do that within the overclocking. Overclocking for Hyper is a bit strange because it normally does not work in the miner programs. I've had trouble with it in the past, and even if I try to dual mine coins, it will just select Hyper and it will mine like 90% on Hyper and then 10% on the other algorithm. Even if we input into the command line to not do that, it still doesn't work. So sometimes the mining softwares just don't listen to that. There might be conflicting overclocks going on or conflicting command line prompts. And then the efficiency doesn't really matter when we're comparing, but these are here just to show you. And the temperatures. So in terms of power draw, we have Hyper, Radiant, Carlson, NeurAI, Ironfish, ALPH, and NEXA. NEXA pulled a ton of watts. These are pretty much together, so NeurAI, Ironfish, and ALPH. We kind of expected it from Ironfish and ALPH because they're Blake 3. And Carlson hash and Radiant are basically the same as well. However, Hyper is a large majority away from Radiant in terms of watts, so it's a very low power draw algorithm, I'd say. That might just be the ETH hash B3 mixed together. And then when it comes to temperatures, obviously we don't want to let our cards run high. The lowest one, again, was Hyper. So normally, in terms of watts, you're going to get the same kind of descending line. So the temperatures are going to go up the more watts you're pulling. So Hyper obviously was at 35.3, which is actually extremely low. And in terms of GPU mining, I'd say 40 to 50, even 40 to 55 range is pretty much the average that people are going to get. So these are all falling in average range. However, NEXA is, I don't know why it's pulling so much on the temperature. Even with NEXA, as you can see with the overclocks down here, we had our fans at 80% until it got to NEXA where it got way too hot on our first try. So we upped the fans to 90% just to keep this temperature low as well. So we've got all the hash rates and the watts. Let's bring it over to Hashrate NO. Let's go onto the calculator. Let's input our cost here and let's actually fill these all out. So the first one that we're going to be doing is API power grid. So I know here it does say NeurAI, but they're all KPow algorithms and they all have basically the same hash rates and wattage. So it doesn't really matter which ones we put it on, but we're going to put it on all the KPow algorithms and then we're going to fill out these algorithms. So now that we've got all the ones that we have filled out, obviously we filled out the ones, as I said, for NeurAI or KPow algorithm coins because they're the same mega hash. As you can see here, Ravencoin and Satox and AIPG, they're all the same because they run off the same algorithm. Let's go for the investment. We actually did pay for this GPU. It was around $250. We can click calculate here, and here it gives us our results. So as you can see here, we have our power costs listed there. So the ones that pull in the most power, I believe right here, is actually Ironfish. And if we look here, Ironfish is actually making 6 cents. At the top, we're seeing 13 cents, and that is, I believe, on NEXA. That's with that high power draw. However, the 13 cents is still good, but we don't really want to mine that hot on our GPUs up to 63 degrees. There's not really much point in doing that. It's going to break the GPU over time, and I wouldn't risk it in terms of a fire risk. And then in second place, we have Carlson, and we have Alephium. So surprising to see that Ironfish isn't nearly performing as well as Alephium. I know that there's FPGAs on Ironfish, and we just got FPGAs for Alephium, so this profitability is probably going to drop as well. Remember, this is at 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And then we have a bunch of these other ones, so I'm seeing pretty much here AIPG, Claw, Meowcoin, NEXA, so a lot of these car power algorithm coins, they're sitting in the 6 to 8 cent range. That's pretty good in terms of the profitability. However, they do run a little bit hot. From here, we can see that we're actually in the minus for Hypera. So even though it was that low wattage pull, it still wasn't the best efficiency in this sense. So we had 16 cents on power cost. It brought us in 10 cents in terms of the revenue. And then at the bottom, we have Satox coin, which is sitting at -2. So the worst one actually to mine right now would be Hypera, even though it's the best in terms of the watts and temperature. And subsequently, the best to mine is actually NEXA, which has the highest power draw and the highest temperature. But in my opinion, if we're looking at this, it's probably Alephium or Carlson that you're going to want to mine on this. Alephium, I'd say a bit more because there's more revenue. So you're probably collecting a little bit more coins in terms of that. Overall, I think in Carlson and Alephium would be the best bet for mining on the 4060 right now. Probably on Carlson, because Alephium is going to get those FPGA hash rates hitting the network very soon. So when it comes to overclocks, I've just listed them here. This 810 is just the memory overclock where you put it at 810 to basically put it to the negative and stop the memory from working. This is what you do in the miners. So 810, so these are basically null, if that makes sense. And then the cores that you have here. So some of them, even with Alephium, even if I put it at 2490, it would revert backwards down to 2475. I don't know why that is. It might just be the increments that the miner's working on for certain algorithms. But as you can see here, we are still using lolminer and got 2490 for Ironfish. So it's a bit strange at what we're looking at in terms of overclocking on there. I don't actually know what the increments are. I believe that they were 5, but this is leading me to believe that they were 25 for Alephium. However, most of these are basically the top core clock because they're core intensive algorithms. So 249. NEXA is 2820. So I don't know where that figure came from. I'm not even sure that the boost actually goes that high, but it was probably causing the temperatures on the actual GPU to go higher because it was clocking at such a high speed compared to, normal clocks that we're having. And then we have the lowest clock down here, which is the Hypera ETH hash B3. As I said, I don't actually know how to overclock for this algorithm. There's not really any information out there. You could start on Hashrate NO, however, they just give you a baseline and you should probably move around from those figures. But even Hashrate NO doesn't have good figures for ETH hash B3, but this is what I worked with. So the memory was at 1250, this was all locked, and the core was at 2010. Power limits that you see here, NEXA obviously had the highest power limit just because we don't really want to go on a lower power limit. Some of the algorithms didn't allow for 90, so even with these 70, 75 ones, it said could not draw power up to 75, and it still allowed the GPU to mine. And then on the external software which we were using, it displayed the power that you can see here. So even with ETH hash B3, we put the power limit at 75 and it only pulled 67 watts. So the power limit is kind of like a fail-safe of if it goes higher and you messed up the overclocks and stuff like that, it's going to save you because it's going to be like, oh, you're exceeding the power limit and your rig's getting hotter and stuff like that. And then lastly, the fans, just to keep it cool. This dual fan that we're using on the 4060, I don't know if there is any way to split the fans up. I don't believe so. With a bigger card like a 1080 Ti, which is always on our testing rig, we can actually choose which fans to actually blow. And we're normally going to blow the first fan. But I believe because it's such a smaller shroud, both the fans are working together in unison. So We have to have the fans high and the temperatures look relatively good. Apart from the NEXA one, I would like these to be a little bit lower, just because we are in the winter and it's slightly colder around here. But these temperatures are fine for now. I believe once we're starting to get up to like the 65 range, that's when we should probably stop in terms of temperatures. So that's it for the 4060 testing. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know if you're going to be getting one of these. Personally, I don't recommend getting one. We had one, it was $250. It's probably not going to ROI it anytime soon. The ROI is 372 days with that investment, as we can see there. But that's still relatively good, I suppose, because a lot of these miners out there are ROIing in 1000 days if you just go on GPUs real quickly. As you can see there, the 4090 ROI is 1600 days. So a lot of these are in the 1000-day range, even though the 4060 is only in like the yearly range. And if we see a pickup in GPU mining coins, we might actually ROI on this GPU. But we're using it for content, so hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment below.